Immigration is expected to take center stage during the State of the Union Tuesday. The address comes as Congress hashes out a government funding deal and debates giving money for a border wall. We've dug into some of the top questions driving the debate and compiled a list of what you need to know before the president delivers his remarks. Let's bring in Kate Smith. She's a CBS News digital reporter. Kate, thanks so much for being here. The president, first of all, says that a border wall is necessary in order to prevent illegal immigration. You actually looked into how most unauthorized immigrants as well as illicit drugs actually come into the country. So what is it that you found?
For people, we've found that 2/3 of recently undocumented immigrants, so that have recently joined that population, we found that 2/3 of those people have actually come in legally on visas, but then overstayed those visas. And that's because for the past 15 years, the government has already spent lots of money hardening the southern border wall. So you're seeing a dramatic drop in illegal border crossings because we've already spent quite a lot of resources securing that border.
Well, I want to discuss some of the impacts of the president's rhetoric. So thousands of troops were just deployed to the border. I know you've been reporting on this. How do politicians who are actually there along the southern border feel about what the president has been saying?
That's a great question. We were able to speak to all 9 of the Congress people that represent districts along the southern border. Every single one, and I should add that there's a Republican there, every single one actually opposed border wall funding during the government shutdown. They voted against the president. And now I should also note that none of these politicians are against border security, but they're on the ground, they see what it means, and to them border security is very different than a border wall. It's ports of entry, it's figuring out the immigration court system, it's things besides, a wall from sea to shining sea.
So is that where they think the resources should go when we talk about border security?
Absolutely. They believe in tighter ports of entry. You mentioned illicit drugs. That's actually how the vast majority of drugs actually enter the United States. They're not smuggled in between ports of entry. They come in through these normal checkpoints, normally like on tractor trailers. Right. They're hidden in different compartments.
Because officials can't inspect every single vehicle necessarily,
of course,
as thoroughly as perhaps some people might think, right?
Especially with the way that we've allocated our resources currently, or I should say the president also is proposing to allocate those resources. Even though the people on the ground are saying, this is what we need, this would help the situation in our country right now.
I want to ask you about another claim made by the president. He says repeatedly that illegal immigrants are bringing violence into the U.S. What do the facts actually tell us?
The facts say the opposite. There's been a lot of research done both by the Cato Institute and then also by the University of Wisconsin, and both of those came up with similar but slightly different conclusions. For Cato, they said that illegal immigrants, so undocumented, unauthorized immigrants, they are less likely to commit violent crimes than legal residents or even legal immigrants. And then also, Wisconsin took it a step further, and they said that communities where you have a larger group of undocumented immigrants, you actually see a reduction in violent crime in those communities.
Interesting. Well, finally, in November, the president said only 3% of asylum seekers actually make their court dates. Is that true? And how has the president's stance actually shaped policy when it comes to this?
That's a great question. It's not true. Department of Justice data, so government entity, says that at least 75% of immigrants show up to their court dates. For asylum seekers, which is what the president was referring to during those remarks, it goes up to 89%. So that is a false claim. However, regarding policy, it's so important. It's more than just a misstatement. It is shaping policy. So recently, 2 weeks ago, the government announced that they would have asylum seekers wait in Mexico as opposed to waiting in the United States, the remain in Mexico policy. Right. Now, that is completely hinged on this assertion that asylum seekers don't show up to court, the idea that they can't, catch and release.
Right.
They won't just disappear into the economy.
Right. So I just want to underscore, so 89%. Yes. Kate, so the number the president cites, let's underscore this.
Yes.
In November, the president said only 3% of asylum seekers make their court dates, but the actual number is what?
89%.
89%.
And he doubled down on that. Last month, he said 2%.
So a huge disparity there in the actual reality of the situation upon which the president is building this rhetoric. It's so important for people to understand what the facts of this are. Kate Smith, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.